I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought at night just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Hello, and welcome to Season 33, Episode 5 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Minerva.
I'm Rose. Oh, I'm sorry.
It was great. And in today's episode, we're going to chat about game mechanics that we want to see more of in 2024. Stefan from Essen in Germany asks about asks about something. I forgot to write what the rest of it was. That was super good. He asks about
power creep and stories.
Yes, power creep and
Plot
stories and plotting a campaign and like how to pace all of that out. And Steffi from Scotland, not to be confused with Stefan from Essen, we've got Steffi from Scotland, talks about the advantages of quiet players and shares some stories that she's had at her table with that. If you'd like to contribute a question or topic to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. All right, you've all had your holiday break. So yes, your homework is to please send in emails or topics. I will be adding a forum back to the website, happyjacks.org, if that's easier for you, if you don't want to actually type happyjacksrpg@gmail.com if that's too difficult. So yeah, send in some stuff because we're a bit thin on a backlog of emails right now, friends. Announcements. Our next game days is going to be January 13th. And oh my gosh, is it already hopping? There's a bunch of games. A bunch of them are already full. It's very, very exciting. So go check it out on our Discord, happyjacks.org/Discord. Totally free. Anybody can sign up to play and stuff. And yeah, I'm really excited about the amazing assortment of games and how many people are already like flocking to sign up for things. So it's very cool. And for our Indie Designer of the Month, it is still the amazing Kurt Potts. You can find his work at Kurt Potts, that's KURTPOTTS.itch.io, or at Kurt Potts on Twitter. This week we were talking about, kind of talked about it when Kurt was on the show a few weeks ago, hashtag bird secrets. So Bird Secrets is a mix of clue-style deduction and PBTA-style storytelling. You take on the role of birds with many secrets. And with the help of, or in opposition to other players, you'll attempt to solve a murder. Is that like another like bird pun with ravens and murder? Yeah, okay, anyway.
Yes, I think so.
The game ends when someone has uncovered whodunit or when 2 hours is up. So playtime, I like that it has like a set playtime, like 2 hours. And it works for 3 to 6 players. And it's 14 pages long, including the cover and character sheets. And you can get it for $2.99 at kurtpotts.itch.io. And this was the game that was inspired by a random hashtag that he just randomly found. If you haven't listened to that, I think it's 2 episodes ago, something like that. He was on, and he was talking about how he just was like working at his job and social media, and he saw, for print stuff, and he just saw like bird secrets really big on like the cover of something, and he just thought it was hilarious, and it inspired his creativity and this awesome game. All right, so topic tonight: what is a unique game element or mechanic that you'd like to see more of in 2024? This is our last official episode of 2023. 2024 is starting in like 2.5 days. Very exciting. I guess depending on what time you're listening to this episode, it's probably a different time. But we're recording this on the 29th, December 29th, Pacific time. So yeah, some interesting design elements or mechanics.
If I can go first.
Okay.
Go for it.
After playing Mobile Frame Zero Firebrands, I need more romance mechanics in the games. Like it just needs to be a thing. Like I need more games specifically built about intercharacter romance. It's just way too much fun.
Talk. What specifically is the mechanic for Firebrands? Like I know, but I'm asking for
So
the
Firebrands specifically has a really interesting mechanic that I think could be ported into other games fairly well, which is they have Mobile Frame Zero Firebrands is split up into different mini games you play, and each mini game is its own scene.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene. There's three social ones that immediately come to mind. There's a discussion over dinner, which is just kind of like chatting, revealing things about your characters. You're all on different sides of a three-way war, and you're kind of like, jabbing at each other, or like it's some sort of, there's some reason that you're not all shooting each other. So it's either like a diplomatic mission, or you're meeting on the streets during a festival and you don't recognize each other, or things like that. And then my favorite two are the dance and stealing time together. And stealing time together is this really incredible, like, because you're on different sides of a war, you shouldn't be falling in love with each other, but that's what's happening. And it's full of just fantastic tropes of like, you choose different things from a list of like, I touch your hand, may I?
Yeah.
Or I kiss you, may I? And it's like, or I stumble over something and say something I shouldn't have, what do I say? And like all these different things, and the responses are like, you may not, you may, but first you have to, or you may not, but you may do this instead. And like this, it's a really cool way to build a really intimate scene between two player characters while maintaining consent, and also giving an excellent, like, none of those things on the list are explicit, which keeps the game from turning into just raunchy stuff happening at the table that no one else wants to be a part of.
Exactly.
And it's really, really cool. It's honestly like one of the things, like Mobile Frame Zero, Firebrands, and I would say is like one of the big, like, oh, this changes how I think about games moments that I had earlier this year.
Yeah. I think it's a really
just
great mechanic for consent specifically. Because of that, what you're talking about, it's like the may I, and then there's like a choice of responses. And so it's just really well done, because it gives people who aren't comfortable, or have just started role playing romance stuff, it's very clearly laid out, but in a way that doesn't feel like
Restricting.
Yeah. So it's really just a great design for consent reasons, and making sure everyone's like buying into the fiction, because at any point, if you're not feeling comfortable, you can choose an option that pauses or slows it down or reverses it. So it's got like,
or ends the scene.
Yeah, exactly. It's got like the safety tools like built in to actually playing it, which is a really, really awesome design thing.
Yeah, the fact that there isn't much romance mechanics out there anyway, it's just already hard to broach that topic with another player. It's like, hey, I think there might be something between the two. Do you want to explore that further? And then there's no guidelines to help maintain that level, that the power between the two,
Yeah.
And just be able to have that just already feels actually kind of cute. I want to have a meet cute already with a new character.
Oh yeah, well, and it's even better because like Mobile Frame Zero Firebrands, I forgot to state the premise. You're in a three-way war and you're all mech pilots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is just it's like, look, this is my Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, but mech pilot romance is my Roman Empire. It's so good. And it's great because you have these moments where these characters, these Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lover types meet, and then the other games that can play out, the other mini games that can play out, are some just absolutely brutal battles. and like people die.
Mhm.
And it just makes for such a good like romantic tragedy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's such a fun game.
I've only really watched any Gundam series for the romance specifically. So fair.
Yep. That's the only correct reason. Giant robots, romance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For me, it's like there is a plethora, but I think it's kind of died out already a little bit. Oh,
Mhm.
not died out, but ebbed away.
Mhm.
Since the Panini is we solo journaling RPGs, just in general, sound like something that I would like to get back into. Just because if I have 15-20 minutes to myself, I don't want to spend it scrolling on social media or something, and just having a little solo journaling thing is something to keep my brain going, get the creative juices flowing,
Mhm.
maybe be a precursor to a game, just to get into that mindset. And it's just something that I've been kind of wanting to have for a while. But I played through all the solo journals that I've had in a while, and I'm kind of sick of it, and I want more.
Mhm.
That's something I'd like to see, if anything.
There
Yeah.
was a really big, I think it was a Humble Bundle. I want to say either earlier this year or like late last year that I picked up, and I have something like 40 solo RPGs.
Oh,
It's kind of ridiculous.
Mhm.
I am only mildly interested in doing solo RPGs, but now I have 4 of them.
Mhm.
40 of them.
40.
Mhm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
As a
What?
quieter
Yeah.
person, yeah, this is more my jam. But as someone who has like a lot of time crunches and trying to squeeze in as much as possible, like this helps segue into different areas in of my day. So I was like, oh, okay, I
Mhm.
like this. Yeah.
What's your favorite mechanic for those? Do you like card draw ones? Like,
Actually, the dice rolling ones, mainly because it gives me the opportunity to roll my dice for actually rolling my dice for for an outcome, instead of just rolling for the heck of it or just stacking it randomly.
Mhm.
So it feels productive in a way. I'm using my dice
Mhm.
so I can get more dice because they're getting used.
Mhm.
That's how you can justify it, is I had to roll these dice for a reason, therefore I can buy more dice.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Have you looked into Iron Sworn Starforged? I think
No.
that's right.
Yeah, I think so.
I will. It is phenomenal. It can be played as a traditional RPG. It can be played co-op
Mhm.
with no GM, and it
Mm-hmm.
can be played as a solo RPG. And it has some of the coolest tables I have ever seen. Like, you're out exploring like strange planets and star systems, and you roll for like what's going on there, and like what's dangerous, and what kind of fauna and flora you find, and
Mhm.
like what kind of biome it is. And it like, I bought the hardback because I was like, the PDF is cool, but I want to flip through this and find specific tables
Mhm.
and be able to like look at them in a physical book, because it's just so cool.
Is romance involved?
Um, I haven't read the rules enough. I just looked at the
Okay.
tables.
Okay. Pretty tables.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll look into
I
that.
honestly, romance can be in any game.
Yeah.
You can quote
If you
me on
try hard
that.
enough.
Yep. Can love bloom on a battlefield. 40K romance.
I think for me, like the one mechanic that I really loved, and I've been like noticing it in other games since we did it, is in the One Ring, the like different phases, where it was like the journey phase, the like, and like how it specifies like different times for different things, and like the Wild Sea also does this, where there's like the mono the montage section and stuff like that, where it's like it kind of prescribes like, okay, this is like downtime where you get to do stuff, where you get to have interactions with each other, rather than just kind of leaving it up to, like, in a lot of role-playing games, like a lot of PBTA and D&D and stuff like that, it's like, okay, whatever we feel like doing next, like, okay, we're in a town, it's like, okay, we're gonna go to sleep and not role play anything, and then we're going to go back out and fight the next day. All these things, like different people play so many different ways, which is neat. But I also like when a game is like so assured of itself that it's like, no, I want to have time where you spend time doing this thing. I want to spend time where you're on the road. I want to spend time where you're, doing, you're building up a skill or you're taking care of a task. And like Forges in the Dark games do this too, where they've got different points of like when you're doing whatever heist it is you're doing and you're figuring different things out. So I really like how that centers like the players on a specific game. So it's like the heart of the game and gets it to that vibe. So that's something I'd love to see more games doing. Like really just like, this is the experience I want you to have with this game. So I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
that's great. Go ahead,
I've
Rose.
really appreciated the rise of games that are capital A about something.
Yeah.
Like the Lord of the Rings game is about going on a journey with a fellowship.
Yeah.
And if you want to play, if the scope of your game doesn't fall within that, there are other games for you to play, but that's what this one's about.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely adore that. I love games that are not trying to be everything to everyone at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because that's how you get a game that feels unique and special. And I feel like that's why some of the Genesis system, like there were elements of it I really loved, but I don't. There are so few people who bought like the generic Genesis book. People bought games that use the Genesis system and all those things, but it's like people want a game for a specific experience. And some games like D&D has that experience. Like everybody knows what that experience is. But other people who are coming up with other systems, it's like you can buy a Savage World book, but even like the Savage Worlds books are flavored. There's like the superpower one, and then there's like, so I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I'm finding more and more how a game specializes itself. It becomes more appealing to me, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely have a lot of like game idea, like campaign ideas where I'm like, oh, I wish I had the right game for this because I'm kind of tired of taking that concept and just trying to port it to Savage Worlds or stuff like that. Like I am, I think, honestly kind of spoiled because in 2023 and going into 2024, I found so many fantastic games that through the design and the rules of the system,
Mm-hmm.
it helps enforce the tone and the kind of vibe that you're going for. I think it's fair to say that Masks has ruined everything that isn't Masks for me a little bit. Because it's just, I had never found a game that captured its core concept in the rules so well,
Mm-hmm.
and created like a play culture through its rule system so well. And honestly, I've had a hard time finding that since. I think Dream Askew, Dream Apart would be pretty high up there as well, as far as like creating through its design a very specific kind of play culture and very specific tone and vibe. But yeah, it's made like, oh, I want to run, I don't know, my Clone Commando game or my All Clone Trooper game, and I'm like going through like 6 different systems trying to find the right one, and eventually just kind of settling on one that I'm gonna hack into pieces and then put back together. So
now, do you think
yeah.
Masks would benefit from not necessarily phases, but some sort of prescribed scene? Because I know a lot of people who play that game lean in on the teenager thing, but it's like, do you need like I feel like sometimes as the GM when I'm steering a Masks game, like it's like I'm planning things out and I'm forcing things sometimes. Like, okay, we're gonna have a high school scene. Okay, this is you as your like alter egos. You're all being as normal as you can in PE class, and like I don't know. I think I don't know if it would. I don't know. It wouldn't hurt it. I don't think sometimes to be like
I feel like having a part of the book kind of explain how to frame a scene well and kind of like and give you some stock scenes of high school life to kind of pull out when you need them would be useful. Because I also found myself doing that, where I'd be like, okay, you all are at the lunch table.
Yeah.
What's the conversation like?
Yeah.
You know,
At the
and
mall.
kind of like, yeah, having to like throw them all into a scene together.
It's all
That
about mental load, really. Just taking some of that mental load from the GM to help them, like just to guide them and the players to make it better. Because after a long day of work, you know, start straggling more people in, like shoving a square hole into a circular peg, having that lovely square that circular peg already preset. It's nice.
It was really nice when I was running One Ring, because it was like, okay, I know we're starting with a journey tonight. So I know like there's there's a part here where I'm not going to have to plan everything. I'm going to have to kind of come up with stuff on the fly, but I'm going to have some sort of framework for it. And then we'll get to like back into the story, or the parts that I have like planned out. So that's always interesting. I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it until you brought up masks. I was like, I wonder if that like you have to have like one main mundane scene every session, or I don't know. It could be interesting.
I'm not wild about that. I feel like Masks has found such a good balance, and that the way it's built, it is made to fit a couple different kinds of storytelling methods. You could have it like, per the way the book is written, you're supposed to describe things as panels and pages and issues and volumes and very comic booky.
Yeah.
But of the people playing the game, like I'd say maybe a handful of us had like bought like individual floppy issues. But like that wasn't really a touchstone for us as much.
Oh, interesting.
Like, and I was very much recommending comics and stuff. There, like, everybody had some level of familiarity with comics, but it wasn't like their thing. And so what worked much better was flavoring it more like a TV show a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And like, you know, we had our beach episode, you know, we had and kind of like the narrative beats from like a television series would be like, okay, we're gonna have a bottle episode, or we're gonna have like this X, Y, or Z thing. And I feel like getting more prescriptive with how scenes and stories are framed in Masks would help it, because in my opinion,
because you didn't use it.
Stories well, yes,
because you swerved away from the touchstone of comics into like CW-ish, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But so that, I mean, that makes sense. But I feel like also like, I'm not saying like Magpie shouldn't like rewrite Masks in any way. Like, I'm not saying, but it's just kind of interesting. Like, if they were really had their heart set on like the comic book experience, if having some mechanic like that would help facilitate the comic booky vibe, rather than having people, which I also do. Like, generally when I do Masks, I also swerve more into like you know, Young Justice and like those like cartoons rather than the comic books. So I don't know, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, and I think it's really important to remember that like changing the medium of something changes its substance.
Yeah.
So like the 2004, I think it was, Hulk movie had a lot of like framed things like comic book panels and stuff like that. And it's like, cool, you're framing it like a comic book. It doesn't make it a better movie though. Like, so I ditched describing things as like comic pages and stuff, because I didn't find that it made for a better game experience.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, like having people like at the table who really resonate with that. Like, I mean, it'd be really interesting to like, if you had a group of players who are really into comics, be like, okay, we're doing like 90s, like New Mutants. Like, so it's like the, which I adored that. Like, but,
oh yeah, no, the New Mutants are, but well, not 90s New Mutants, because 90s New Mutants turns into X-Force, and that's not great.
No, but like when they were first introduced, like it was super interesting, and I thought I don't know. So it would be really interesting to see, to get a very like like a specific mode of comics too, like not even just comics in general, like a specific era. Oh yeah, man, like right before like Image Comics bumped out of like Marvel and DC, like that'd be super interesting to see how that would go, and then how that would flavor Masks with that very 90s. Everybody has pouches now, and like
The
I don't
Rob
know.
Liefeld effect.
Exactly, the Liefeld like era there. Yeah, that would be very interesting to see. Huh. I don't know,
Yeah,
just kind of
I feel
amusing.
like Masks tonally doesn't vibe with like 90s comics very well, because 90s comics was all about the edge. And like you can do that in Masks, but it's not really designed around it.
Maybe. I mean, there were also moments like, especially with the younger comics, and I mean, if you look at Teen Titans, like Teen Titans had a lot of those moments in there, and you've got like Starfire and Dick Grayson having their relationship, and like, you know, eventually like when he bumps from Robin to Nightwing, which is always a good decision. Like all of it,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of touchstones there with like classic Teen Titans from like the 90s too. That could be done. I mean, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's a little bit more of a blind spot for me. I'm just
Okay.
thinking about like what 90s Marvel looked like.
Oh,
And
yeah.
90s Marvel was like guns, pouches, what was it? It was like Dark Claw, Blood Man, all that kind of stuff. It was a bad time. Like
Well, yeah, it was very edgy, but when it came to like the comics, like that's really when comics kind of split into very adults, and like there still were kind of like these teenage groups a little bit more. And I don't know, it'd be really an interesting like gaming experiment to see how you could flavor Masks to be kind of like different specific periods in comics. I don't know, just interesting. I don't know if that has anything to do with our conversation. I think we've like swerved way off topic.
I think we swerved a little bit.
absolutely.
But it's okay.
I wanted to flavor it a little bit, but with Masks, I always had a My Hero Academia vibe from it. And I don't know if it's life imitating art or the other way around, but I've always conflated the two because they were so similar, or they were released, or I just experienced them or watched the series and then read the book, the core book at the same time, which is quite possible.
Yeah.
But I've always felt like Deku was my character, and somehow I rolled Deku, and he's experiencing all, like, that's how the game played out for him.
What playbook was it?
He would be he would be kind of the legacy. He would be a merge of a legacy or
legacy, protege.
Yeah, protege.
Yeah.
Protege turned into a legacy because of spoilers.
Okay.
But yeah, but that's where I was getting all my context from.
Absolutely. For me, Masks was something I started running while listening to Jay and Miles explain the X-Men. So it was from like Giant Size #1, and then especially like the like start of the New Mutants era, and especially the Demon Bear saga were like really big influences for me at the time. So that was all really fun. I definitely stole a lot of like Demon Bear stuff for Adam's character, who was playing the Doomed, and just like spooky foreshadowing is the best.
I think it's hard to tell which one came first. So My Hero Academia came out in 2016, and then it looks like Masks did too. Maybe not. I'm doing the Googling.
The anime coming out, or the manga? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't the manga. That was the
yeah, because I want to say the manga had been out for a bit.
I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
And
Googling's not making for
the cool thing. Masks, I think, just kind of takes superhero stories really well, because you can kind of graft on whatever your touchstone is.
Teenage.
And it fits in there pretty well.
Yeah, I think teenage
touchstone. Yes, it wouldn't work for like the Avengers, but Young Avengers, absolutely. Young Avengers, Young Justice, Teen Titans, Teenage Spider-Man, the New Mutants, Generation X, all of that, all kind of can fit in there really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I really dig it. Anyways, go buy masks if you haven't bought masks yet. It's really good. You won't regret it.
It'll be very fun.
Unless you want to play something that is super gritty comic booky, because that's not what that is.
Then get Wild Talents.
Yeah, then get Wild
Oh,
Talents.
yeah.
All right.
Explode everything.
Explode all the things. All right. Mailbag number 1.
Absolutely. Howdy, hopefully happy Jills and Jacks. Potentially, this is just an issue about systems I am playing with, namely Vampire and L5R mostly, but hopefully this is an issue others can learn from / relate to as well. I find it hard to plot a campaign. I'm a fan of complex stories that are mainly driven by player decisions, so I can't really say that I will need X sessions for Y to happen. Indeed, my current campaign, what I thought would be a matter of 3 sessions, has bled into 9 evenings full of plotting. Getting to know everyone and traveling around as well as not really deciding on the dilemmas presented. Shrug. What I'm getting at. Power creep, it can ruin every story. I have played in some where this was the case. Either the big bad is more like a flimsy puppy by the time the heroes arrive, or the big bad needs to be some kind of universe-consuming monster to even pose a challenge. That's why I assume plotting growth is necessary. One obvious answer to all of this is toward XP for story steps. Let's leave aside, though, that this can be more fuzzy than easy in an initially open-ended story that is driven by player choice, and steps are omitted or new ones built in. I've played in campaigns where I was denied for 4 to 5 evenings that sweet XP reward, and it didn't feel great. So, do you plot character progression and power and ability as a GM / storyteller / chronicler from the beginning? Do you find that wise? Do you go into specific details, or do you stay in very broad strokes? Am I fretting about nothing? Best regards, Stefan from Essen, Germany. P.S. You are allowed to have 1 snack. What is it? I have some Sour Patch Kids right over there.
Yeah.
That's my 1 snack.
That's it.
If you want to count this a snack, it's a chocolate lava cake stout.
Ooh.
Delicious.
I thought you were just gonna say yourself, Minerva. Like if it counts as a snack. I was like, all right, more power to you.
1 snack. I feel like
Thanks, bro.
I've killed Minerva.
yeah. She's gone now. The snack has been consumed. Probably Kit Kats. I love Kit Kats so much.
Kit Kats are great.
Yeah.
A nice cold Kit Kat, so it's extra crunchy.
Crunchy, yeah.
Oh, yes. Very.
Love that.
Nothing sadder than a warm Kit Kat.
I mean, I still would eat.
I mean, if you're desperate enough, it does the job.
I'm always desperate.
Fair enough.
I'll eat a warm Kit Kat. That's fine. That's fine. Any type of Kit Kat, I will accept it.
Okay. So bringing it around to the question.
Yeah.
Do you plot character progression and power and ability as a GM / storyteller / chronicler from the beginning? Do you find that wise? Do you go into specific details, or do you stay in very broad strokes? Am I fretting about nothing?
I mean,
Yes, and yes.
Yeah, I feel like this is a very system specific question, because there are systems where like that power creep works differently than in other systems. So specifically in things like Vampire and L5R, which it does matter how many dice the people are throwing to make their opponents a challenge. I tend to paint in very broad strokes across a story, and then that those broad strokes are able to be adjusted depending on where the players are at, because honestly trying to plan anything else is futile.
Yeah, especially like if you don't know how powerful players are going to be like when they get to a thing, just kind of like plan to build it immediately beforehand.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I don't know. The whole thing of going 4 to 5 sessions without getting XP, I'm like, I couldn't tell you the last time I cared about XP. like I mostly play PVTA games, so like you get XP whenever you mess up. So if I wasn't getting that, I'd be like a little bit disappointed. But like I also like the other game that I was thinking about, like, oh, where XP mattered was playing like Heart, the City Beneath. And like those characters are gonna end up dead. It doesn't matter how many advances I get. They'll end up dead if they're lucky.
Yeah. But it does matter in a lot of systems. So I think it's an important thing to focus on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to like my D&D campaign days and kind of I think if you're going to go, like, if you're going to take something like Vampire the Masquerade and use kind of like a what's the non-XP leveling system in D&D 5e? What's that called? It's not like benchmark. What is it?
Crap. We talked about it.
I know, right?
Yeah. I'll think of it as soon as you keep talking.
Something stone. I can't think. Milestone.
Milestone.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Bumble.
There we go. I am a.
Thank you so much, James and Steffi,
Oh my gosh.
in the chat.
Well, and just also just like being exhausted from the holidays. I'm just so tired. My brain is like shutting down.
Hey, look, between 3 hosts and 2 audience members, we got it.
We got it.
So
no. Yeah.
That one brain cell is just bouncing around.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly feel like that's the only way to run D&D. Like the individual XP points. Yeah. Because you can't if you're using actual individual XP and stuff, you can't really measure it out without the players often feeling well and like stingy. This is like, okay, I want them to get this many XP before they meet this boss. But again, like you say in your email, you don't know how many sessions that's going to end up being. So suddenly you go all these sessions with no improvement. And in a game like D&D, that's very like carrot XP driven. Like, here you go, come this way, get the XP or the magic items. Because that's what all DMs sound like, right? Like
candy. Ooh,
yeah,
candy.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's hard. You can't really dole it out like that unless you're following like a very clear like adventure path without it just feeling like contrived, I guess is a better, like stingy. Because sometimes it's like, oh, I've got to level them up before they get here. They haven't done as much as I thought they would. Okay, you stepped on a lizard on the highway. Oh, here's a bunch of XP for that, and you're like, okay.
There's also a whole thing of like now it's been a hot minute since I've read the 5th edition DMG, but like giving out XP for like role playing and giving out XP for like getting through non-combat encounters or like avoiding combat or stuff like that. And at that point, the granularity of XP just kind of gets in the way, in my opinion.
And
for
again,
things, if you're going to do if you're going to do milestones in a game like Vampire, I think because Vampire is such like a political game and things like that, where you're not clearing out a dungeon or completing a quest, you're like amassing power and stuff like that. I think you'd need to come up. Actually, I think the game Heart is a good touchstone where like the way you get XP in Heart is by you set out certain goals you have for your character, and if you meet those, you get XP. And that ends up being a really fun way, one, to incentivize doing thematic things in the game. Like, oh, if I'm playing like a cleaver, I have to like eat something I shouldn't. Or go kill a giant monster or something like that. Sometimes both at the same time. And I think something like that for Vampire could be super fun, where it's like, oh, that could be something where you could have a certain list depending on like what bloodline you are. You could have a certain list depending on like what your character motivations are. I forget what those mechanics are called in Vampire. That could be super fun, but that also sounds like a lot of work to implement. I would say if you wanted to just do like a milestone for Vampire, I'd say like ask your characters what goals they want to achieve and then give out like a bucket of XP when they meet certain goals. Or I think certain games it's like, oh, did you make progress on your goal? Okay, get 1 XP this session.
Yeah.
Did you complete your goal? Get 3 XP this session.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I don't have a problem with how XP works in Vampire. I played a lot of it, and I've never had a problem where it feels like in D&D, where you feel like you're just murdering a bunch of like monsters just to get XP. It's
Mhm.
done a
You're
better
in the
job.
dungeons killing rats.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like it did a little bit better job and really like thought about that. And the way you spend it and get points is very different than like in D&D in some ways. So I don't know if it's just because it's a very different type of game, and generally you end up like in a specific location for longer. D&D is all about going from place to place, and if you're playing in like the traditional sense and like clearing out dungeons, like you were saying, but like Vampire, usually you are in a home base or location. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes maybe you've traveled to another kingdom, but you're not just like wandering the countryside in most cases. That's just not how
If things are going well for
Yeah,
you,
if you're going-
you certainly aren't.
Exactly. That's just not the vibe Vampire's going for. But I do think like if you can use like the milestone. Another thing you can do is if you are going to just do like the XP leveling, which like some people do prefer that, just don't like lock in your baddies and your big things. Like know that they're going to be there and then just level them appropriately when they actually get there. So you're like, "Oh, okay." Like pull a like cliffhanger at the end of the session before or whatever. It's like you walk in the dungeon, you hear a low growl, and okay, let's drink a little bit and we'll see you next week. Like whatever you do, then just like level appropriately, like adjust. Like there's a million like D&D there's guides everywhere about how to tweak monsters in the monster manual to fit a certain party makeup and how to fit like parties of a certain level and things like that. And it's super easy to just tweak the math a little bit or to swap out, like if it's in an adventure, like there's supposed to be a certain monster there and you're like, oh wow, that's going to be a really easy thing for them, or way too hard, like swoop, like just whip it out. They probably don't know and they don't care.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
just
also
put a
a
little
huge
multiplier
fan.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I'm also just a huge fan of reskinning monsters.
Yeah.
Like a bullywug doesn't have to be a bullywug, or like if you need someone to be like a good fighter who can cast magic, you can pull that from a bunch of different things. You could pull like one of the NPC paladins. You could pull one of the like NPC sword mages, stuff like that, and kind of like I ended up using like a drow, or no, I used a like a high level Eladrin from the monster manual to be like a drow assassin, and then I just gave them the like drow abilities like darkness and stuff. And yeah, no one could tell the difference.
Yeah. I would be a little careful with that in some places. Specifically, there's a lot of D&D people who have a lot of the monster manual like memorized. Yeah. So and same thing for like Vampire. It's like, okay, I know that this creature has this weakness. And it's like, so make sure if you're doing that reskinning, which I 100% do a lot, like make sure you're also just being mindful of like, okay, if I'm calling it a werewolf, making sure that you're also porting over like its weaknesses that they would expect normally, so that you're not hamstringing them with their like knowledge of what these things would be.
Yeah, I recommend that for things that either don't have a monster manual entry already. So if you're kind of like homebrewing a monster, just like porting that onto a stat block for a already existing monster is great. That's especially what I do for humanoids, because I'm not going to build up, like I'm not going to figure out what the math is. I'm just going to take something that they already balanced and just put that into my game.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, that does get more complicated when you're having to take into account things like, very specialized weaknesses or stuff like that. But like, if you need something big and scary, like, does it matter if it's actually a giant or if it's actually the stat block for a ogre?
Yeah.
Like, they don't have special weaknesses or strengths. Like, you wouldn't want to put in a troll because like their regeneration thing and weakness to fire, like that's a very troll thing. So things with like signature strengths and weaknesses, be careful not to do that with. But like there's a lot of generic stat blocks in the monster manual and the other supplemental books, and good lord, the third party material. Like if you want to just throw stuff that your players have never seen before, get some third party stuff. Like there's a lot of people out there who put a lot of work into making all of that stuff. I know a lot of them are kind of getting out of that game with how WotC has been, but
Mhm.
like I got some really fun bundles from like Humble, and I backed like a cool thing that came with like 9 new classes and a bunch of monsters and
Yeah.
stuff, and I was like, this is neat.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are all kind of options. If you need to kind of stat something out on the fly,
Mhm.
file off the serial numbers, make sure there isn't something glaringly obvious like, wait, why does this giant have dragon breath?
Mhm.
But otherwise, have fun.
Good. And maybe maybe it's a dragon that got stuck in the form of, like, who knows? Like, you can always be creative with it too. But just
Be
just
flexible about it.
yeah, and make sure your players are flexible about it too. Like James was saying, he's like, I always tell my players when we start, like, I'm not sticking exactly to the monster manual. Like, if you've given them a heads up, then that's also fine too. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think those are the two when I'm running systems where that really matters. That's another reason I love these kind of games with phases in them, because it's like, okay, like, I don't have to, as a GM, worry about any of the XP stuff until we get to the phase where, oh, here we go. Like, we just kind of tally it up, and then you spend it at the specific time, which was really cool when we did One Ring. And I feel like that's the same, again, for Wild Sea, has kind of a similar kind of vibe to it with the thing. So that always makes it easier to kind of pace stuff out too. I know that's not really helpful for L5R or D&D specifically, but tying it back to our first conversation.
Well, but also it also is dependent on the GM one also to be flexible. Players need to be flexible. But I've been the AP that I've been listening to a lot, because thanks Eli, is Pinnacles, run by
Yeah.
Jason, and that he can be very regimented about, hey, is this is downtime now? Do you want to address anything in downtime? Which means, do you want a refill of any of your willpower
Yeah.
or anything like that? So it can be up to you on how you want to dole out that XP to get that party to that certain level. Because I know in some of those episodes on Pinnacles that he's kind of flying by the seat of his pants. But he has this big baddie that he's coming up to, and it's like, I feel it.
Yeah.
Just on that. But yeah.
The vibe of it's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
No
It's coming,
spoilers. I'm not
Jason.
caught up.
Oh, okay. No bad.
But no, Wild Talents is a game where it's like a point buy system, like a very detailed, crunchy point buy system to make your characters. So that stuff really matters, and exactly how you do that. And willpower boosts your powers, so that's really important that you have enough of that to and you replenish that as you can, because it's not really easy to do.
And he has made a point, like either 1 or 2 times a session, to say, you are actually having some downtime now. Do what you do.
Yeah.
James brought up a very good point where he said, kind of
Kinda?
flying by the seat of his pants. Kind of. First of all, Jason is a certified pants pilot.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to give him that flexibility, the benefit of the
I think
doubt.
he was the first person to cross the Atlantic flying just by the seat of his pants.
Yeah, for sure. But again, like, it's interesting to watch that happen with such a regimented system as Wild Talents, because it really is a very structured, crunchy kind of system. And while the combat is very engaging and very unexpected, and you can't go through a Wild Talents combat without some pants flying happening, like seat of pants flying, because it's chance. Everything is chance. You don't know what's going to happen in a way that just is very different than most games that have regular initiative. There's also a lot of exact it's very easy to have the baddies overpower or be underpowered and go too fast and things like that. So you have to do a lot of preparation to be able to run it on the fly like that. As someone who ran it at conventions for years, I did the exact same thing we were just talking about, where it's I just had a stack of a whole bunch of different baddies, and it was whatever I needed, this was going to be that. This was this hard, this one's that hard, this one's this hard, this one's big baddie level, and then Okay, like these generic military humans become police officers, or the army, or whoever, just so, yeah, I did so much rescanning with that because it mattered on those ones. It wasn't something you could just, same thing with D&D, like the math is there for a reason
Mhm.
to make things balanced, and it can be challenging to kind of fly by the seat of your pantaloons.
Your pantaloons.
I did want to roll something back, and as Stefan mentioned earlier in the email, he was talking about how um, in his current campaign. Now, I don't know if it sounds like this is a campaign that he's running.
Mhm.
What he thought would happen over 3 sessions has bled into 9 full sessions
Mhm.
of plotting, getting to know everyone, and traveling around.
Mhm.
And not really deciding on dilemmas presented. That's when you have someone break down the door with a gun. Like, I forget which author it was, but when he didn't know what to write next, someone broke down the door with a gun.
Mhm.
And like, if you have players that are refusing to take action or make choices, you don't punish them, you gift them the surprise of something exploding.
Yeah.
You got to do something to shake up the status quo. Someone kidnaps the mayor, someone breaks down the door with a gun, someone's poisoned the watering hole.
Mhm.
Whatever it
Mhm.
may be. Apparently all of my games are set in the Old West. um,
I think this is
but
a symptom of both vampire and L5R. And I think probably any game that has a setting that has incredibly regimented societal norms, like vampires, like in Vampire during the day, like, or not during the day, but like in their normal lives, like don't have a ton. But the minute you start interacting with other vampires, their rank, their age, how close they are to, and how diluted their blood is and things like that. If, their power in the, close, like their proximity to the prince, all those things change drastically how you interact with them. And like it can mean life or death very quickly. Same thing with L5R. It is a very regimented society, and like how you interact with one another is very specific, and the slightest little thing can like really mean, problems for you and your party based on
Mhm.
who you're interacting with. And sometimes that leads in raising my hand, super guilty of this. Anyone who's listened to our APs of this knows.
Yes.
Oh my God, we talked so much and planned so much. So much. Like,
I think, if I remember
So
correctly,
much
you
planning,
got
so much
shot with an
talking.
RPG twice before deciding to do anything.
oh my gosh, it was, oh my gosh. But yeah, there was especially, oh man, the vampire one where I was the prince for a while. That was a nightmare. I was so, oh man, it just so much talking, so much all of us talking together on the best course of action for our little like princedom, and then off to like the bigger prince above us who could just like snuff us out with his thumb, and just like all the overthinking of everything. Whew, oh
I can't
boy.
think of a worse fate for me than being forced to play the prince in a vampire game.
It's
That sounds
it's
awful.
it was
No
so
one wants to
bad.
be the
Mm-mm.
prince. The
Oh,
prince gets murked.
yeah. Well, and it was like my Venture's like total like goal, and I just like, but I don't. Oh no, I'm venturing too well. No, no, crap. Ugh, I am Prince. Okay, fine. It's like, of course my Venture's gonna want that, but no. But anyway, yeah. So I feel like that's a very specific problem with both of those settings. And yeah, having something happen like that, then totally like give them a timer, like not an actual timer, that's annoying.
I've actually done that before.
Yeah.
I set a 5-minute timer. I had Joey, Jason, and Adam, and then the rest of my Masks campaign group, like in the sewers, like trying to break into like an art gallery,
Mhm.
and they couldn't figure out how they were all like, they spent so long trying to decide how to get through like just a metal door with like a camera in front of it.
Yeah.
And like one of them was essentially like Captain America on roids.
Yeah.
Like Like, and two of them had literal magic. Like, and one of them was a hacker, but they couldn't figure out how to get through a door and a camera. And so I set an actual timer, and it took too long, and so a thief busted out the door, setting off the alarm, and took off down the sewer,
Yeah.
forcing them to actually do something.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's just what you have to do. And I feel like I feel like Stu should have done more of that. Especially with two gangrels who just loved yelling at each other so much.
He shot y'all with RPGs twice.
Yeah, I know. But like they were all there. It was a lot of that.
Yeah. That's
we
fair. That's
we
fair.
were still young in our AP careers too. It was
Mm-hmm.
Was that a recorded
Yep.
AP?
yeah, both of
Mhm.
them were.
Which one?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's
so-
out there. I believe. Is
Yeah.
that one in the podcast feed, or is that on the website now?
They're both in the actual play feeds, I think, still.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So
Yeah, if you
go-
can't find it there, I remember at one point the AP feed started to cut off some of the old episodes.
Oh, okay.
But we
I'll
have
double
them on the website.
I'll double check that. I thought I
I
fixed
think
that,
that's
but-
been addressed, but
Okay.
it's been a while since I went to listen to Motive Sin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, Motive Sin, and then there's a whole series of them that were the L5R games. And
Mhm.
I only remember the latest L5R. The
the Kintsugi Chronicles. I can't say.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Motive Sin. Okay.
Motive Sin. Yeah. Now they're early. Like they're like the L5R one was like our first actual like campaign RP. So it was
Mhm.
like before we knew better. So there's like moments where we like are eating. Like it's old.
Yup.
Like it's like I
Yup.
mean it's like 13 years old, friends. Like it is old school. And you can listen to
Yeah.
like young 20s Kimmy. It's fascinating.
This was back
I'm here
before
for it.
people filmed their APs.
Yeah, streaming
Like,
wasn't a thing.
That wasn't a thing.
Mm-mm. No.
I Twitch may have been a thing back then, but it was
I don't
not
think
what people
so.
were using for their APs at all.
No, yeah, I don't think Twitch was a thing yet because
I
We
want to
signed
say
up-
it was because I remember
2010. So
Yeah.
not for you guys yet,
oh no.
but it was a thing in the greater world outside of actual plays. Because I watched I was a League of Legends player
Uh-huh.
back then. I don't like to talk about it. I am not proud of it.
Yeah.
I have recovered.
Yeah,
Um,
Twitch started in 2011.
but I watched a lot of that.
So Twitch started in 2011 because I remember we signed up because we thought about maybe trying to stream, and there was another service that I can't remember what it was called, that we signed up for, and then we just never did it because we were like, who wants to watch APs? It's weird enough people want to listen to them. And then when we tried to actually use Twitch years later, Twitch had bought whatever this other service was, and we couldn't get Happy Jack's RPG. So that's why we started off as Happy Jack's RPG Live, because the name Happy Jack's RPG was already taken because they'd bought that, but we couldn't get it back. It was just
Mhm.
like the biggest like kerfuffle ever until I finally just bothered them enough. And I got lucky. Like I just happened to email the right person. I think that they were quitting or something, so they just fixed our thing. So we just got lucky with that. Anyway, that was a fun story that nobody cared about.
well, I'm gonna be looking for the Motive Sin
Yes.
for tomorrow. So there
Oh,
you
man.
go.
It's long. It's one of our longest APs. We played for like 3 or 4 years.
Oh,
It's
dang.
yeah, that
Okay.
was Samantha's first actual play too.
Oh, so it's gonna be extra weird. Excellent.
Super
Okay.
weird. Like
Gosh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, up
Living-
the bar.
I just finished Vault 818, and I absolutely adore Sam.
Yeah. Oh, I just love her so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. I remember calling her up for like the first they like to have her be on there. Because she and I had been friends through cosplay. And I was like, so like I know this is weird, but like I feel like you said one time when we were hanging out at a convention that you'd played like tabletop games. And she's like, yeah, I played D&D like once. It's like, okay, do you want to try this thing? And she's like, okay, cool. So yeah, it's worked out well, obviously. The rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing all the weirdness, the charming, well-dressed, well-tailored weirdness to every game.
Absolutely.
All right, next email. Mailbag number 2.
All right. Greetings, Kimmy. Assortment of backup dancers and mods with their cyber black suits,
Ooh.
shades, and security earpieces. It is I, Steffi from Scotland. In season 32, episode 10, there was an email about turning shyness and introvertness into benefits for themselves and the table. With the round table of loud hosts, the podcast fell to awkward silence for half of a millisecond before natural instincts took over. Thoughts were spoken aloud. Advice was given. The podcast was saved.
It was a super awkward moment. Like all of us were like, quiet players. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
However, I would like to represent my people, the quiet ones, though, like all groups, being quiet is not a monolith. There are just my experiences and insights. But before that, someone on the podcast said that quiet players are fine. Quiet players who are playing a phone game are just jerks. For neurotypical people, yes. For those who need brains, the mental fidget spinner, you do what you need to do. It was brought up in the podcast that quiet players often catch things that louder players overlook or weren't paying attention to because they were thinking about what to say. I felt so seen. Once, I made a conspiracy board of all the plots as I understood them. I presented this to the players and GM in-game, in character. This is something my insecure daddy's girl did to try to prove her worth. This is something I did as I felt we weren't moving the plot forward, but just gathering more plot lines that we just didn't follow up on. It sparked a cool scene where there was some light teasing and meme referencing. The group added to the conspiracy board and decided how we want to go forward. This was a little extreme, but it doesn't have to be work between sessions, but I did it because I enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
In game, I'm not thinking of myself as being quiet, but making room for other players. When I do speak, I feel that I am taking up too much spotlight, making everything about me and being selfish. Oh, wow, right there. Okay, a way I found to deal with this is playing the support character. This isn't always the cleric. In the dragon game, my favorite character was a barbarian druid. During combat, I would turn into a bear and grapple the enemy. The bear hug became my signature move.
Aw.
It made my character look cool, but it also gave the rogue sneak attack every turn. This can be done outside tactical warfare. In a Star Trek game, I played a counselor so I could talk, play my quirky, wholesome disaster lesbian, but the scenes were spotlighting the other character. In Masks, my character rolled out the powerful telepathic player on being mean. While the PC was willing to mess with my character's mind to make her think he was nice, the player was respectful and asked if it was okay. I didn't just okay it, but it made it a part of one of my mechanics. So when I played into that mechanic, I was also spotlighting that player's choice and character moment. This can involve learning about the other PCs and their mechanics, which as a quiet player, I'm always interested in. These support moments give me my permission to embrace the spotlight more than I'm normally comfortable with.
Nice. All right, tag in. I'll go in.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Maybe.
might just finish it because it's not that much longer. Is that okay, Rose?
I'm not going to fight you on it.
Okay. If you want a moment, talk to your GM. In another Star Trek game, I ended a session where my first officer character was unable to rescue a ransom NPC. This NPC meant nothing to me or the character. If anything, he was a jerk. However, I put on the big girl pants and asked the GM if I could do something terrifying, opening the next session with a short scene. I had my character talking to an NPC counselor about not being able to rescue the jerk NPC and had the counselor point out that she's not talking about the NPC but her brother. It felt good once it was done, but it was terrifying at the time. I couldn't vocalize it through the characters, so I narrated what this would look like on the show. Body language and camera work, doing a lot of the legwork while I summed up the conversation. It felt very effective and was one of my favorite moments. On the podcast, the debate came up about whether quiet players can be leaders. In 2 Star Trek games, I had ended up with positions of leadership. In the captain in the game with my first officer dropped, and I was asked if I wanted the promotion. I said, I'll do it unless someone else wants to play captain. And no one stepped up. Exactly. See, no one steps up. It's just, okay. Another game, my young pilot ended up leading a group of lower deck officers more than once. I came across 2 major problems, but the other part of leadership I was good with. The first was the Picard speech. the young pilot had this. It came naturally to me. This young, idealistic officer could talk about the ideals of the Federation and morality, and I could embody it. Sir Patrick Stewart would applaud. I hit a wall with the first officer turned captain. I designed her with the concept of a CEO's personal assistant. She would be quiet, but proactively working on following the captain's orders, making sure the ship looked good and was tending to the welfare of the crew. She just had no social skills. I had no problems interacting with the crew, playing her as being proactive in her work and how she spends her quiet moments, but there's a chirp, chirp, chirp and her ready room door, but the speeches just didn't come. So maybe for immersive players like me, the quiet character isn't always an aid. Although the young pilot wasn't an extrovert, she was curious and asked questions of people. Going back to my support role, showing my character by spotlighting other characters. I did know her better than my first officer turned captain when I was expected to make the speeches. This may also have played a factor. The second was I was concerned about what the others would, that the orders would cut into player agency. Yes, this is the hardest part. Sorry, I'm switching between me and Steffi at the moment. I wanted to check in out of character if the orders were okay. Stuff like, do you want a scene with NPC 1 and NPC 2? The other players asked me to stop that. We compromised. If I gave them an order that didn't seem fun to them as a player, that they would just bring it up and we could adjust. Yeah, that, pausing for just a second, that's the hardest thing. Like, same thing with what we were just talking about being the prince in Vampire, or, a high-ranking nobleman in L5R, or like in Traveler, having one person be super rich if they just happen to roll that way. Anything where there's like a power structure, it makes it really difficult. And it's just so hard because, like, I think nowadays I'd play that prince from, I don't know, we started that game in 2015 is when we started the Mode of Sin game. Thank you, James. I'd play it so differently. Like, it's literally like almost a decade later. But at the time I really wanted it to be fair. Like, I was like the nice, like, kindergarten teacher. Okay, I'm giving an order, but I want to make sure everybody's okay with it. And let's talk about it ahead of time. Like, I would have done much better as a Federation starship captain. But as a prince, it didn't make any sense. But it's so hard because you're like, you don't want to take away the agency of the other people at the table who are your friends, and it's a pain in the ass.
I think
ahead.
when you're gonna have a dynamic like that, you need to kind of have a pre-game talk about that. Like, especially a game like Star Trek Adventures, where that's a built-in concept. I think you need I'll give the order in character, but if you out of character have a problem with it, tell me and I can adjust.
Yeah.
Or be like, yeah, my character will do that, but they're going to have feelings about it. Or something like that. Just kind of flag that stuff.
Yeah.
So you're not kind of just rolling around in the dark, giving out orders and hoping that the players at the table don't get mad at you.
Yeah, because that ends up with like one of two situations generally. It's like you get the player who wants to give orders and everyone else has a terrible time, or you get the person who doesn't want to make everyone else have a terrible time, so they hate giving orders. Like,
yeah,
those are the only 2
100%.
modes. Yeah. Which I'm so traumatized from my experience as the prince in Vampire that I like literally made a mechanic so that nobody has to be a captain in Starscape. It's like, there's a captain and there's a mechanic for how it makes decisions, and none of you have to do that because it's terrible. Okay, anyway.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Kimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it works yet, but it's just
We'll
it's
find
just
out.
awful. We'll find out. Sorry. Anyway, back to the email. My current problem as a quiet player is that I can't drive them like they are stolen. Okay. I don't put this out.
Steffi, I have played with you.
Yeah.
I remember your mech pilot. I feel like that was driven like it was stolen. It was quite fun.
Yeah. I don't put this to being quiet. I put this to being immersive. There's a lot of role-playing going on in my character's head that isn't making it into the game. There are elements that I don't know how to bring this out into the open due to my own introverted shyness, and the element of I don't realize how much role playing I'm keeping from the table because it is so natural to me. I've managed to breadcrumb clues to her inner workings since realizing I'm doing this and am boiling up ideas on how to have this boil over in the next session. Steffi from Scotland. P.S. As I'm writing this to you, you have been nominated in the Ennies. Oh, this is a little old, sorry. Congratulations. Congratulations on the win or robbed as Decima takes the gold in my book. Well, good job. Thank you. We did it.
We got the gold.
Yeah, we got the
Yay.
gold. Yeah. And PBS. Exactly. Yay, JackerCon. Come to the Discord, y'all. It's a blast. Yeah, JackerCon was a
Holy
while
cow. Wait, if we're talking about JackerCon, that's not until what, June? July?
Yeah, that was during the summer. This was an email from the summer. But yeah, also come to the Discord
Oh my
because we've got game days. Yay!
Yay, game day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Also, I'm there. You get
Yeah.
to deal with me. It's wonderful.
it's amazing. It's a great place. I think a lot of us have those things where there's like so much of our character that doesn't make it to the table. Even loud players, I think, have that. Unless you're doing the like, I wrote a 5-page backstory and I'm going to read it aloud to everyone in this moment, which you should never ever do, ever. Like, then yeah, I think there's always going to be little elements that nobody ever finds out but you. And there's something kind of cool and magical about that. I love sometimes.
On the one hand, yes.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Steffi, write a character journal.
Yeah.
Share it with the other players. It'll be fantastic.
Amazing.
Well, that's another way I could use my journals. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say, gosh, I want to say in previous APs, or wasn't it in the Savage Worlds Rifts campaign where I know were the recaps, or was there a journal told from the dragon's perspective or something like that?
Yeah.
It's been years since I listened to any of that.
Yeah, no, Samantha played like a baby dragon in that who wanted to be a writer and had a journal. She was like a teenage angsty dragon.
Oh.
And she like kept a journal and she like legit kept the journal. I don't know if it's still like where we could find it, but at the time she was actually like, that's how she started with the recaps. Like that was one of the first APs. I don't remember if she did that one or Motive Sin. I feel like Motive Sin started first, but that one like concluded.
She did the recaps for Motive Sin first, and then if I remember,
I think
and
she
then
incorporated
started doing the in-character journal
for her teenage angsty dragon. I think she wrote that into the character because she liked writing things down so much, and she's talked about before how like taking notes like keeps her focused on the game, so she really likes doing that. So she just had that as part of her character. And I think that was the first one. She had like a really pretty journal. Like she like really like doubled down. And now she has like a really pretty journal for like every game she's in because it's kind of just her role as like the recap.
Yeah, the lore keeper.
Yeah, exactly. But we also have done ones where we had like character journals and stuff. But I think those are probably all long gone too because we did them on Google Docs and stuff. But yeah.
Those will still be in there. I have stuff from college. On Google Docs.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like...
So long as people...
Where?
Yeah, you just sort by oldest.
Yeah.
As long as
quick
you
shout
didn't
out
from there. Yeah.
Quick shout out from the Twitch chat. Storygirl brought up officer logs for Star Trek Adventures. That is perfectly on brand. Putting that in the form of like a captain's log, stardate, blah, 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 blah. Like... Oh, incredible! I have always kind of wanted to play in a Star Trek game, even though I haven't watched that much Star Trek, and that would just like chef's kiss.
Yes, I think there's something to be said though. I love like these little morsels of characters that like really influenced how I played a character, but just like nobody else really knew about. And then like, and maybe that's just like a little secret you have about this character that you loved and made, and like. There's also been moments.
If you play an Aarakocra, is it a bird secret?
Exactly.
It's a bird secret.
Bird secret. I think you have to whisper.
Bird
Secrets. It's a bird secrets. Yeah. But I also think there's something to be said for like years later when you're fucking drunk as fuck with your friends and you're talking about your games, and then they're like, "I never figured out why you did this," and you're like, "Oh, because of this," and they're like, "What?" And then you just have like this huge reminiscing session where you like both explain stuff you never knew. And those are just like those are great. I love those moments. Good times, good times. You have a lot of
Indeed.
those on the in the Discord too sometimes. Like when you're all reminiscing about Vault 818, like Jason and I just like
Mhm.
spun out on that. We're like, oh yeah, and remember this, remember that, and like I don't know, it's very fun.
God, pancakes.
Pancake.
I love
Oh
pancakes
my
so
God.
much.
I totally forgot
We
about the
need
chickens.
a sequel to Vault 818.
Oh my
We need it
God.
so bad.
So bad. Yeah. Well, and then I was like, over the holidays, I was visiting my dad where my car is because my armor is based on the real first car I had, the baby
Aw.
blue 67 Barracuda. And it was like sitting, and I was like, oh, it's my power armor. Nephew, got your flat tires. I feel bad. Okay. But
Oh,
that's what happens when it's parked and, but yeah, I
Get
don't know.
flat tire syndrome.
I mean,
Poor thing.
it's got it.
It happens to a lot of cars that age.
It does, exactly. Especially when they're just parked and they need to be wrenched. I haven't wrenched on that car in a long time. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I think there's amazing things that it might be a good idea to like really plan out what things you really want people to know. And then the rest, if it happens, it does. If it doesn't, then you get drunk with your friends later and tell them. I don't know.
Mhm.
So, all right.
Yeah. I mean, the only like as a quiet person in everyday life, not here, but it at work or anything, it's the quiet player does have that silent Bob power.
Mhm.
When they finally do speak, it speaks volumes.
Yeah.
But it's just getting those words out first, it's kind of hard just to ramp up the energy to be able to speak from a quiet person perspective.
Mhm.
And that's just when you're surrounded by when the energy starts going, yeah, it'll finally start rolling down, but it just takes a while for that end for the first kick into first gear, then the subsequent gears to get that word out, because words are hard, unfortunately.
So hard.
So
Yeah.
very hard.
We
Yeah.
can, we couldn't even think of
Especially all these
milestone
questions.
today. Like we didn't even have the word
So, yeah,
milestone.
it's Friday. God, guys.
That's not
We're just
even.
in limbo here
Yeah.
between Christmas and New Year's.
I know. I mean, it's not even a.
Look, y'all are lucky I just put on pants. Like,
Wait, we were supposed to
Appreciate
put on
the
pants.
I put on
You'll never
pants
know.
today.
Nobody can know. I mean, milestone's not even a D&D word. It's just a regular word in the world that we all should know anyway. Like, okay.
I refuse.
when was the last time outside of D&D you said the word milestone? Come on.
I am kind of a project manager, so weekly.
Yeah, and I'm a teacher and I have a toddler.
I can't manage myself, let alone a project.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, she's reaching all her milestones. So I use it quite a lot, actually.
That's why we blocked it out of our memory.
Yeah, like to me, it's like, okay, is my toddler making these sounds right now? Okay, is she able to say the words like correctly? Yeah, so I think that might be it. Like I use it so much more
Just
in
have a
regular
psychic
life.
block up.
Yeah, it's a
like-
real life word, not a gaming word for me.
Yeah,
so.
there's like boundary right there.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us for season 33, episode 5 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Please support our amazing indie designer of the month, Kurt Potts. You can find his work at kurtpotts.itch.io. That's a KURTPOTTS.itch.io. Or at lighthearted.games. Also, Lighthearted has amazing art by...
Hi, I'm Minerva.
who also did a bunch of the art for Demigods and a bunch of other really great games.
Yay.
I'm very excited. Thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. You can join their ranks at happyjacks.org/Patreon. We've been rolling out our Nerding Out episodes, which have been super fun to make. I don't know if anybody actually likes them or listens to them, but we're having so much fun making them. So yeah, if you are D8 or above, I think you get those. They're really fun. And Minerva, you had a thing to say, right?
Oh yeah, actually I am please come over to my channel, blue_troller, twitch.tv/blue_troller for Saturday, 8:30 Central. I am hosting a giveaway during my end of the year drink and draw stream. I'm giving out 4 prizes, 2 of which are dice sets, care of Primus Dice. They're super sharp, dangerous type dice. I have a set and they're delightful, but please tune in at 8:30 and we'll be giving away those prizes.
AM or PM?
PM Central Standard
you.
Time.
Tomorrow,
Perfect.
December 30th.
December
2023.
Okay.
December 30th, 2023,
Okay.
8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on twitch.tv/blue_troller.
Okay.
Boom.
If you're listening to the podcast version of this, I probably will not. It will not be edited by tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Go back and watch the VOD.
Go
You
back.
won't win
Yeah, it'll be
anything, but
great.
you'll have a
Yeah,
it'll be
good
fun.
time.
I love your drawing streams. They are just so much fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have been Kimmy.
I've been Minerva.
And I've been Rose.
All right. And thank you for an amazing 2023. Here's to 2024. And we're going to leave you with a song called Pastime with Good Company by a band called The Merry Wives of Windsor. You can find them at mwow.net. Yeah. Thank you all. And we'll see you next time in 2024. Next year. We'll see you next year. Bye.
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 Pastime with good company, I love and shall unto I die. Rude you will, but none deny. So God be pleased, this live will I. For my past tense, sing and dance. My heart is set, all goodly sport. To my comfort, who shall me let? Youth will have needs dalliance, of good or ill some past tense. Company bethink it best, of thoughts and fantasies to digest. For idleness is chief mistress of vices all. Then who can say, but pass the day is best of all? Company with honesty is virtue and vice to flee. Company is good or ill, but every man has his free will. The best ensue, the worst eschew. My mind shall be virtue to use, vice to refuse. I shall use me. Pastime with good company, I love and shall until I die. Rude you will, but none deny. So God be pleased, this live will I. For my past tense, sing and dance. My heart is set, all goodly sport. To my comfort, who shall me